Welcome to the Intentionists podcast, where we explore the interplay between intuition, spiritual health, and everything in between. I'm your host, Amy Schreiber.
And I'm Hilary Zwallen. Our intention is to create a dialogue that inspires you to consciously forge your path with curiosity and compassion for life and its mysteries. Hello, fellow Intentionists. Here we are, me and Amy back together again. It's been several weeks since we've actually recorded an episode together, so it feels really good to be back with you.
Mm-hmm.
So today we're going to talk about sound healings. And, well, I shouldn't just say sound healings, but sound healing. We're talking about the healing power of sound and kind of the history around it, some of the science around it, and also what are the ancient and modern practices, so that, what can you do to benefit from sound healing? For some of you who follow us on Instagram or follow me on Instagram or live locally in Modesto, maybe you've been to a sound healing session that I have done or that I have conducted. So we'll talk a little bit about that too, and kind of what it's like to be in a session like that. So Amy, where shall we begin? Shall we start with the history?
Yeah, let's do the history. It was quite the rabbit hole researching all this. So yeah, I'm excited to hear what you found.
I know. I felt like we could have even gone like 3 or 4 more days of just research, because there is a lot to it, right? So maybe there'll be a part 2 down the line, but so let's talk. So for thousands of years, people have used sound as a way to gather, to celebrate, and to sanctify. But it's really only been in the last 500 years or so that we really even knew that sound was actually a vibration or made of sound waves. And you can look at how sound influences water. And as we know, the human body is made up of like 60% water, right? Mm-hmm. So of course, if water is influenced by sound, we would be influenced by sound. We could be affected by sound waves and moon cycles, just like water is. So sound is used in churches, as church-going members will know, with the hymns and the organ music and tabernacles and basilicas. The bells will chime and they'll call people into mass, but or to come worship. But they're also ringing out and clearing the space. The bells do that. And just creating that sacred space. And we've talked about creating sacred space in previous episodes. What was it, like episode 4 or 5 or 6? Something like that. A while ago. We have a whole thing on sacred spaces for people that are interested in that. Choirs sing, and that can create sacred space. In Buddhism and Hinduism, there's a lot of chanting mantras and sounds like ohms and ahs, and there are sound bowls and gongs. So I could go on about that.
Yeah. I mean, as far as like sound specifically for healing purposes, it's been used to like heal illnesses and like emotional upsets, as well as like the spiritual side of it. One of the oldest instruments is this flute that the Aboriginal people in Australia used.
Is this the didgeridoo, or is it something different?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it's that.
Well, I'm feeling very musical.
Yeah, they would use that too. They would actually like use it for like physical, like you broke an arm, they're going to play this flute at it to heal it. And then there's like in the Bible, there's David playing his harp or his lyre, whatever it was for King Saul to make him feel better. So,
yes. And if you know, so in the beginning, right, was the word. You hear this in the there's like the first few words of Genesis. I should get out my Bible to read that, but you utter the sound Om and everything came into existence, right? So when the smallest cell or atomic particle vibrates, it creates a sound or a vibration that then brings everything into existence.
Yeah. So the cosmic sound allegedly is Om, or is it the AUM? The OM or the AUM?
That I don't know. So do you want to talk about sound waves, like the history of sound waves?
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
I got a lot of different people saying different things about the beginnings of the discoveries of sound waves. Some people had referenced that the Greek philosopher Aristotle had referenced sound traveled in waves as early as 300 BC, and that there was also a scientist that they had referenced called Seneca, who in like the 1st century BC had referenced that. But it was like, the sources were not the best. So I'm just throwing that out there. Also, Leonardo da Vinci claimed that sound had moved in waves. And I remember this when I went to one of, there's like a million Leonardo da Vinci museums in Europe. And I went to one when I was in Rome a few months ago. And there was they had like a replica of his experiment of sound waves with water. So I know he's given a lot of credit, but we know Galileo Galilei in the 1500s recorded the relationship between the frequency of the wave and the pitch that it produces. So since sound waves from musical instruments vary in pitch, this was kind of a significant discovery. Then in 1640, Marin Mersenne, a French mathematician, discovered the speed of sound as it travels through the air. So he discovered the frequency. Robert Boyle discovered that sound needed a medium by which to travel. So the air is what helps the sound travel now, obviously. And so he did an experiment with a glass jar where he put a ringing bell into a glass jar, and then he pumped the air out of it. And then you couldn't hear the bell anymore because there was no air left. And so it showed that with no air, that sound doesn't have the capability to produce the necessary waves. And then probably the name that we would notice the most, and again, I'm no scientist, but Christian Doppler. I know in my family, we're always like Doppler. There's like the Doppler app where we love to watch the weather. But Doppler's a big thing in our family. We're like, oh, let's track the storm.
And I was like, where are you going with this?
Right.
That's so interesting.
Christian Doppler in the 1800s, he developed a math equation that calculated the frequency of a wave when the wave source is moving. So according to this musical sound waves WordPress blog, I'm going to just read a quote that the writer wrote. He claimed that as the source of the waves moved further away from the observer, the frequency of the waves would become lower. Therefore, the person would hear the sound with less intensity. On the other hand, if the source of the wave moves closer to the observer, the person would hear the sound with greater intensity. And this coined the term the Doppler effect. So Doppler came to the conclusion that the velocity of the waves produced are directly influenced by the medium in which it travels. So there we are with sound waves. I just think it's interesting that, that came about in the last, 500 years. But when you think about the origins of sound and Om and meditation and, references to music, we can't really know what the music sounded like back in the day, all throughout history. Because obviously we just can't know, but we're just finding like stone tablets, but you can see that it's indicated in, Egyptian stone hieroglyphs and pictures dictate, like you said, in the Bible. And so there was clearly something that humans knew about this sound and how sound really was used as a way of clearing space or creating sacred space. So anyway.
Right. Did you read about this 432 hertz business?
Yes. Please explain, though, to our listeners.
So, okay, actually, I'm going to start like the biological effects of sound on people
do
first.
That.
So, people have used sound in cultures across the world, but in recent times, as early as 1914, they would actually bring music into surgery rooms. Like they didn't have anesthesia, so they would bring music, and the doctor said that people did a lot better when they had their little phonographs or whatever it is they had back then. Now it has been proven through scientific studies that if you listen to music before surgery, it reduces your anxiety and lowers your heart rate and blood pressure. In these studies, the music worked significantly better than anti-anxiety drugs. So,
wow, that's interesting.
Just music. That's crazy.
I mean, I can just tell you as a mother listening to my kids, like my kids are in this special stage of life where they are just like freaking loud all the time. Like they just make noises. They're just like yelling and they're excited and they're like rambunctious boys. And there's like a point where you're like, the noise, like it's going to make me go crazy. And then like, I will have to remove myself from being a mother and turn on like really calming music or no sound at all to just like ease up the stimulation. So I can see how the importance of the beautiful music or like calming, just bring peace, please. Bring peace into my life. That's all I ask.
Well, and the other crazy things, these studies that I was looking at, so music has been proven to also improve athletic performance.
Really? What kind of music did they say?
I don't remember on that one. They did say, but I don't have it. But it decreases testosterone levels in men, but it raises them in women.
So this is why Marvin Gaye music is really good if you're trying to set the tone for women.
Dr. Greger, who does nutritionfacts.org, he did a good movie about like the summarizing all these studies that have been done on music. And he said that it's kind of like testosterone in men, it creates aggression, but like in women, it just, I don't know, kind of increases the libido a little bit. He said music is the way that we all get along. Like men become a little less aggressive, women become a little more welcoming. So it's
the median between the yin and the yang. There you go. Interesting. It's a balancing force.
Yeah. And then this other study, if you are allergic to latex and you get latex injected into your arm, if you've listened to Mozart, the irritation bump is way less than if you've been listening to any other kind of music. Any other classical musician they did this with. Like people have done a lot of speculation on this, but they say that the reason Mozart music is so much better than others for allergic reactions is because he did the whole magical tuning of 432 hertz. Like that was the tuning he used.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, that's what they say. Like, I think that's what some of his stuff was written in. Some of it wasn't maybe, but I think because normal like commercial tuning is 440 hertz. And there's all sorts of conspiracy theories that I found about this. But
I want to hear.
Yeah. So the 432 hertz, this is the frequency that is consistent with the golden ratio. So this is called scientific tuning or philosophical pitch. And it's said to be the pure tone of nature and that it is harmonic with the Earth's heartbeat, which is apparently 8 hertz, according to this scientist named Schumann. That's like the Schumann resonance. So they say things tuned to this 432 is going to be more in tune with nature. So it's going to be more calming, more beautiful. Anything else is going to be dissonant. So the conspiracy theory I found was that 440 hertz became the standard across the world, originating in Nazi Germany because they said they tried to get away from 432 tuning and make sure that everything was at 440 for mind control purposes, basically.
These are some good conspiracy theories.
Right. So everything you hear now is 440 pretty much. And that's
we are now controlling you.
So
just kidding.
Exactly.
Just kidding. That's interesting. I've never heard that before.
Yeah, it's interesting that they've found ancient instruments, though, like buried in Egyptian tombs and other things, and they are all tuned to this 432 frequency.
Wow. That's really interesting.
Yeah. So I want to look more into that because that's really fascinating to me.
That sounds like a good Unsolved Mysteries documentary.
I want to listen to some music that is like 432 and then listen to some not and decide if it's.
So is it just that it's like the
real
pitch of the sound? I don't even understand the science behind what the hertz and all that.
Right. So the frequency of 432, that's the A note.
Okay.
So when A is tuned to 432. Yeah. So if we want to get into like the chakra tones.
Yes.
They are all according to this 432 tuning. And that's the A, which is apparently like the second chakra. Mm-hmm. So you have your sound bowls,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Does each one correlate?
So yeah, but mine, like the two that I have out right now is the A, which is the third eye chakra or the sixth chakra. And then the C, which corresponds with the root chakra. Now that's just with the bowls that I purchased. I'm not sure that this is like the universal way for it to be.
Well, I don't think there is a universal way. I mean,
exactly.
But yeah, the other thing I found was different. But yeah, play one of them.
Okay, so here, this is the A note.
Oh.
Hear that?
Nice.
Do you want to hear the C?
Yeah.
So here's the
one.
C. It's a little deeper.
Ooh. So what one is that supposed to be correlated with again? The C?
The root. And this one corresponds with the root chakra. And then I have some other higher pitched ones. And I don't even know what notes these are, but they're a lot higher.
Ooh.
And I usually use those towards the end, but we can talk about sound healings in a minute. But now we kind of know the different sounds of the since we were talking about chakra tones. And then I have some tuning forks, and these are really trippy and they are really high pitched. I don't know that they'll actually pick up the way that we want them to. Let me hold this microphone and see. Hold on.
Yeah, I was reading that tuning forks, people use them, they'll like put them on your body. Have you done that?
I have. And so why don't we, since we're moving into sound healings, why don't we talk about that?
Yeah, let's talk about the tools.
So like the sound healing stuff that I've done it's more meditation based. And the idea is that people come in and they basically lay down for an hour, and I will guide them through some basic breathing exercises. And then we move into a guided meditation. And I always start out with drumming. So I usually use the deeper reverberating vibrations that kind of draws people out of their monkey mind, right? The mind where we can't seem to, where you're worried about the groceries and you're worried about what your boss is doing at work, or you're worried about what your kid said, or whatever the things are, the noise that we have going on in our heads, or the negative voice in our head that is self-critical. I'll use these drums or rattles, and this is from the shamanic path that I had been studying with. And I'll usually give people a quick map. And what I mean by that is I'll just say, all right, so here's where we're going to start. And then you can allow your mind to go where it wants to go. The idea is that you're moving on a journey, whatever it is for the day. It can be different, but I'll start with that. And then I'll move once 10 or 15 minutes goes by, and you can kind of feel the energy in the room depending on who's there, how many people are there, the intensity of the healing, kind of the intent. And so then I'll move to these crystal bowls, because that is a calmer, more soothing tone. I will usually do a joint guided meditation where we'll go through all of our chakras, and I'll play the different instruments that correspond to that. And then I'll usually bring out the tuning forks at some point. Like this last time in the summertime, it's usually not as well attended because people are just traveling. So we had a smaller group. There was maybe like 8 or so people. So I used the tuning forks, and I would go around and I would place it on the head, or I would put it right over the body. You can feel the different vibration. Like when you hit the tuning fork, it has a vibration, and each one has a different tune. Like this big tall one that I have, it looks like it's maybe 9 inches long, and it has the 2 prongs of the tuning fork and then a little base, and it's tuned to 174 hertz. Now, some people know exactly what that means. I don't as much. So I just go with what's intuitive in the moment. Yeah. So you can use them to balance whatever's going on. And then at the end, we just kind of bring people back. I use just different types of chimes depending on what the theme of the event is. But the idea is when you're done, your body has been exposed to all of these different vibrations. And so whatever is in your energetic body or in your energy field that is out of balance should be in alignment, whether it be through the sound or through the intent that you set through your meditations of going through each part of your body. Because a lot of times we just don't go through, we're not like aware of what's going on in our bodies throughout the day. Like we're not sitting there going like, let me check in with my pelvic bowl. Or let me check in with this, like this area between my navel and my collarbone. Like how am I feeling in there? So you just take a moment to do that sort of thing. and it can be really helpful.
Do you ever chant to the mantras for each chakra?
I haven't done that with my sound healings, but I've been to others that have. And I think that, I wasn't trained that way, so I haven't done it, but I've been to some Kundalini classes where they do a lot more of the mantras based on the chakras, and it's really powerful. And even finding where the Om is in your own register and the volume in which you're comfortable with. Some people it's really low and some people it's high, and it's just kind of depends.
Yeah, for people interested, just go on YouTube and look up the chakra mantras, and there's some really cool recordings I was listening to. While I was researching for this, I listened to one of those, and I was trying to listen to some Mozart. But yeah, those ones on YouTube are really good. So I think we should go through and mention some of the other tools. Did you say that you use drums? Do you use a drum?
Yeah, like I use rattles and drums. And what I wanted to mention is like the EDM stuff, electronic dance music, and kind of that trance inducing beat. It alters your brain waves. and you can feel, right? Like if you're around like really heavy bass music, I know for me as someone who's like highly sensitive, I never loved being in like really loud places or feeling that. But some people, it's like really soothing to feel that deep, that bass, vibration, or to be in a place where there's just the repeating kind of trancey music. So.
Right. Well, yeah. And in a lot of like ritual situations, if someone's bringing a drum and you're going to do either a shamanic journey or conscious dance experience, whatever it is, they use like 4.5 beats per second, a lot of them, which is the frequency of the theta brain waves, I think, which is the REM, sleep, dreaming, creativity, subconscious.
The
relaxing.
Other way that I've heard about theta, and that where you can access theta, is with these chimes, right? And it's when the tones are unpredictable, because the brain, from what I've read, is always looking for repeating patterns. And so melodic, beautiful music is soothing and helps us, helps us access different brainwaves. But the theta is where we go to where we aren't in our thinking mind as much, right? So we like the unpredictability to get to that really deep meditative state. It's these kind of minor tones and done in a little more dissonant way helps people to really drop into that. Right. And it's called entrainment.
Yeah, that's the idea behind binaural beats, is what a lot of things are called. And what it is when what's coming into your left ear is a slightly different frequency than what's coming into your right ear. Then the brain perceives a third frequency, which is the difference between these two. So if there's like 200 in one ear and 205 in the other ear, the brain waves are going to match to the 5 frequency. They have all sorts of programs for this and recordings that I've seen floating around the interwebs. But
yes. So just back to the entrainment, to piggyback on what you were saying. So yeah, like this is the binaural beats, the brainwave synchronization. It refers to the capacity of the brain to naturally synchronize its brainwave frequencies, right? Is this what you were saying with the rhythm and the periodic stimuli? Okay. Yes. Okay. So yeah, we're on the same page there. It's widely accepted that patterns of neural firing measured in hertz correspond with states of alertness, such as focused attention, deep sleep. This is exactly what you said. And that listening to these beats can induce a desired state of consciousness that corresponds with specific neural activity. So yeah, there we go. We got that down. What else, Aimee? Oh yeah, we're going to talk about the different musical instruments.
Yeah, I mean, we already covered most of them. You talked about your sound bowls, tuning forks, drums. Have we talked about chimes yet?
Oh,
like
you
the
talk
planetary
about that.
chimes? Yeah, that was on the first sound healing that I ever went to. The woman leading it came around with this chime, It was almost like a wind chime, but a little bit different. And it was so beautiful. It was one of the most beautiful sounds I've ever heard. And I asked her what it was afterwards. She said, oh, it's a planetary chime. So apparently they can mathematically decide that the frequency that each planet is emitting, and they tune these. So according to the sun, the moon, and then all the planets. And that's all I know about them. That the one I heard was really beautiful, and that it's all mathematical golden ratio.
That's
stuff.
Cool. Let's talk about Reiki music, or the electronic relaxation movement. You can find stations like this on I just hooked my kids' Alexa up to the electronic relaxation station that plays this type of Reiki music at night when they go to sleep. You can find them on YouTube. You can buy them directly from artists that create the music. And this goes along with that binaural beats, but it's kind of like higher end spa music. You know, sometimes you go into different spas and they play like versions of old 80s songs, but with like Peruvian pan flutes and, you know, triangles and stuff instead of just, this feels almost like angelic. It's very relaxing, otherworldly, ethereal music, right?
It's like new age music, right? Yeah,
new
like
agey.
Enya music.
But I think even more, I feel like the Reiki music, like Enya even has more, like it has more of a melody. A lot of this Reiki music, it's kind of like sounds come in and then they go out, and it's very, Enya, it's kind of like that. But I feel like Enya-ish, yes. So let's talk about Tom Kenyon. I wanted to find, I always like to do a story about a person or whatever. So Tom Kenyon is a sound healer, but he uses his voice. And there is a documentary that I would recommend everybody watch, because if you're interested in this sort of thing, whether you're a huge skeptic of, you know, new agey channeling or sound healing, or you're just like all in, I think you would enjoy it, because it's really an interesting story and an interesting concept. So the documentary you can find on YouTube is called The Song of the New Earth by Tom Kenyon and the Power of Sound. And Tom Kenyon, he's got several advanced degrees in psychology. I don't know if it's in mathematics, but he was a scientist, psychologist. He's very well spoken. And he talks about how when he was a child, he saw this book called The Boy Who Sang the World. And in this book, this little boy went around and he sang everyone's dreams, and then they came true. And he remembers reading the book as a kid really vividly. Like, he remembers reading it multiple times, and at least that's what I remember him saying. And so then as an adult, he was remembering this book, and he went to look it up as an adult, but there was no book ever written called The Boy Who Sang the World. And so he feels like he must have read it in another realm. That's kind of what he says. So he said as a child, he would always go out and he would sing to the sun and the moon, and he felt that they could hear him and that they would respond to him. So just this kid that was always, you know, singing and just kind of a loner. And so what he does now is he is a vocal channel. And I'd never heard of this before. There's a lot of books now written by channels, right? The Course in Miracles was channeled.
The Seth books.
Yeah, the Seth books. Yeah, kind of in the 70s, I think there was a big movement. And then like the Abraham Hicks books, you know, The Secret, all the Ask It and Is Given, people claiming to get advanced knowledge from beings, otherworldly beings. And so what he did is he went to all these different places all over the world. And some of the places, I think people gathered to see him, and some he just went by himself, and he would sing the song of the new earth in order to raise the vibration of the planet. He was like told by an angel when he was younger that he was going to help sing everybody's pain away, or help to bring raise the vibration of the planet. Right. I mean, it's kind of it's out there. You got to watch the documentary though, because it's like, what the heck?
Yeah, I will.
Because you have to hear this man's voice. His voice is like, it's like prehistoric. It sounds like so old, prehistoric, kind of really deep chanting. And then he'll go into these like opera, melodic, just this beautiful, these tones that he does are just amazing, right? So he's kind of a John of God type of character. So then now people, you know, over time would kind of hear about him, and then people would start to come to his sound healings and would claim to be healed, that they would have these experiences where they would leave just feeling, you know, exalted and in tears, you know, like a John of God type of person, right? Where you go to this.
John of God is the one in Brazil.
Yes, he's the one that you go to that like does surgery, like energetic surgery on, like you go up to
he does real surgery.
Oh yeah,
I saw.
Yes, okay, you're right.
Yeah, he's the one, he channels like surgeons who are dead, and he actually performs actual surgeries with like kitchen knives on people and have allegedly healed them, like tons of people. I was looking him up like a couple months ago, and
my mom and I were talking about it. She was going to go to Brazil for a work thing, and we were talking about how cool it would be to go see John of God, because it's like, how often do you get to go see a guy like that? So yes, I think his is a similar thing. So he has that documentary, and so then I watched this part of it where he channels like otherworldly beings, but it's like not. At least in his sound healing sessions, you know, he's playing bowls and chimes. And then there's this one where like a whale comes in, and the whale starts to speak through him, and he sounds like a whale. I mean, it's the craziest thing I've never seen anything like this. So people go listen to it, because it's really, and I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts on it, because it's crazy. Yeah, he's also written a lot of channeled work. So I think channels the Hathors, and I think he has like a Mary Magdalene channeling thing. Who
are the Hathors?
I don't even really know. I think they're supposed to be another star nation. I read one of his channeled,
like the Pleiadians.
Yes, which I think we should do a whole episode on, because I don't know as much about it. But yes, so the Hathors, I think they're a star nation. I don't know if they have something to do with the Egyptian goddess Hathor, or if it's something completely different. But anyway, there's exalted beings. And that's what he channels. So I've read some of his works, and it's interesting. You know, it's stuff that makes you go, I wonder if that's true. I'm a healthy skeptic about it. I think there's like really great stuff that's written, but also like, really, you know, I don't know. I'm somewhere in the middle on all of it. I think it's all really fascinating, and also kind of like, I don't know. So yes. Tom Kenyon, look him up. He's got cool. his body of work is really beautiful. Like his voice and all of that is really interesting, and just the whole concept of a vocal channel, that he's like bringing a vibration.
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
Mm-hmm. Right, I hadn't either. So there you go. Anything else, Aimee?
No, I mean, I think. Have you had any especially interesting experiences while leading a sound healing?
So the only thing I would say is, I mean, it's always a visual experience for me in terms of knowing what to say or do. But what happens for me is afterwards, when I first started doing sound healings, I would be down for like 2 and 3 days after. Like I would have just horrific headaches. I could hardly get out of bed, because I hadn't grounded properly beforehand. So I knew there was something going on in the room, because you can feel it, and you can feel the frequencies. And I would find that I'll oftentimes cue people to breathe and release when you can feel like a layer is ready to emerge, you know, and that people are shedding you know, density that they've been carrying with them, whether it's fear or sadness or anger or pain or whatever. And because it's a group setting, I try not to get too involved with anyone individually in their frequency. But yeah, you can tell that there's definitely a feeling there. And I notice now that I've been doing it a while, it doesn't affect me as much. If anything, I'm more energized when I'm done. Before, I used to just be completely spent, and I'd have to leave the minute it was over and go home and take a bath and go to sleep and just sleep it off. Where now I find that I leave and I'm feeling like energized, and, you know, leading the sound healing is obviously different than receiving the sound healing, because you can't fully relax and you're holding the space for everyone in the room. But I still get so much. For me, it feels like I've taken like an energetic shower. It feels very, to me, I decided to do it because I'm not doing it. It's not like it's my full-time job or something, but I started doing it more as a way for me to have a spiritual practice that involved, you know, it was kind of in place of church. I stopped going to church and I was like, I feel like I need to give back somehow. And I haven't done that. Like, I'm not in church. I'm not sure how I feel about religion. And so this was a way for me to feel like I'm in a spiritual setting, in a place that where the intent is to hold space for personal healing and growth and relaxation. And so I think at a minimum, people leave feeling really relaxed. And I've had people come up to me and say, you know, gosh, I really needed that. I feel so much better. I really needed to work through some things. I really saw, I got a lot of personal insight during that hour. Thank you so much. And so it's always very validating when you feel like you've helped somebody do something. You know? Yeah.
The one that I went to with you was amazing. That was one I had some really vivid, like, visual scenes playing out in my mind and people I was talking to. The first one I went to wasn't so, it was more just really, really relaxing. I wasn't seeing much inside my mind, but yeah, the one with you was very active.
Well, it's interesting too. I think people, you know, if you go expecting to have this, like, oh, I'm going to have a conversation with my deceased grandma in my mind's eye, like this is all going to be, you know, or whatever, you kind of never know what it's going to be like. I've had other people say that they see colors the whole time and they just kept seeing different colors. And other people say that they've had these very vivid vignettes play out in their mind, and other people just fall asleep and snore half the time. So, and I feel like all of them receive a benefit, whatever that is, whatever they needed in that moment. Right. So, but I'm always curious. I'd love to, I need to go to someone else's sound healing, because I play them for myself, but I find too, Danielle, who is my shamanic teacher, she uses rattles, to do like personal journeys. And so I've been doing that in the mornings for my own meditation practice, just using a rattle, just kind of shaking a rattle in a rhythm. And it really does help you to drop in to your meditation. So I would encourage listeners, if you're starting a meditation practice, or if you want to enhance your meditation practice, to just get any sort of a rattle, and you can use that as a way to journey yourself. You can even play it yourself, and you can still receive a benefit from that.
Right. Yeah. Everyone, there's a lot out there, a lot of different little instruments that you can find to experiment with this stuff. Yeah. If anyone does, please comment and send us messages and let us know what you learned and what you think about the whole sound healing experience.
Yes, we would love to hear from you. You can intentionists@gmail.com, or just DM us on Instagram. Guys, thanks for joining us this week. It's been fun, Aimee. I'm glad we got to get back together again.
Yeah, I know.
We've got some really good guests lined up for upcoming issues.
Great interviews coming up.
Do you want to tease the next week's?
Yeah, next week is going to be an awesome interview with the amazing Letty Cooper, and we talk about gathering in women's circles. And
didn't you talk about ayahuasca?
Oh no, that's another one. That's going to be in another few weeks. So we have women's circles, self-love, and ayahuasca coming up in the next month or so.
And I am hopefully heading to Glastonbury, and so I'm excited to. I've heard two things about Glastonbury. One is it's the place that Joseph of Arimathea went to bring Christianity to Britain back in the day. And the other is that it is where they claim that all the Arthurian legends and lore, it is Avalon, which is right where the Knights of the Round Table and Guinevere and Lancelot. And so I'm hoping to make it there in the next week. And I'm thinking we should do an episode on that when I get back.
We certainly will.
It'll be fun.
Before we part, we'd like to say thanks for listening, and we hope you'll connect with us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. We would love to hear from you and appreciate all feedback, shares, and likes.
To learn more and subscribe to our newsletter, visit Intentionists.com. And no matter where you are or what you're creating, we send you love and invite you to breathe and begin.
See you next week.